Well, I'm doubly lucky today because I am joined by both directors of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. We have the director, Dr. Mack Wilberg, and the associate director, Ryan Murphy. What a delight to be with both of you today.
Great to be with you, Ruth. Thank you.
You know, it's always so exciting when there's a new CD, but this one I think is especially thrilling because this one's for everybody. This new CD will resonate with people of all ages. It's called Teach Me to Walk in the Light and Other Children's Favorites. So before we get to the individual songs, tell me how this one came about. Mac, we'll start with you.
Like so many of our projects, we've been thinking about doing something like this for several years. And like all of our other projects, it seemed like the time was right to do something like this. And so it was a bit of a challenge deciding what would best be on this recording. But one thing that was always in the back of my mind was that it had to be children's songs that adults could sing as well. And I think that we've hopefully succeeded in capturing not only these wonderful children's songs, but in a way that is presented in the best way possible by both the choir and the orchestra at Temple Square.
Mm-hmm. Probably. When you have a project like this, you say we had to carefully choose what we would include. Sometimes knowing what you can exclude, what you can leave off the CD when you have this wide array of great children's songs, that's the challenge sometimes.
It is. It is always a challenge in any project, narrowing down what exactly the material will be appropriate for everyone.
You know, I don't know if our viewers have gotten to know you, Ryan Murphy, yet, but I think it's interesting for folks to know that you actually were a student of Dr. Wilberg's while you were both at BYU. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's right. It was amazing to learn from such a gifted person as Brother Wilberg, and now to be working with him is just a real delight. So,
needless to say, Ryan was probably the most talented student I had the opportunity of working with while
you
at
don't
BYU.
have to say that because I'm sitting here. Just
Well,
so you know.
no, I'll say that.
Well, anyone who knows him, and we have a little connection, he was actually a missionary. Well, you tell, Ryan.
Well, Ruth, your parents, your father was my mission president, and your mom my mission mother when I was in Paris, France, many years ago. So
It's a small world.
It is a small world,
is
and I
small
remember
world.
hearing about Elder Murphy, this gifted musician, and the Christmas concerts around Paris. Right now, were my dad the pianist and you were the director? How did that work?
No, I think I was the pianist. So,
Okay, and
although he's a very good pianist himself, but I got to play a lot of piano on my mission because he was so supportive of music. So it was a real.
We heard about the concerts, so we are so delighted that you would join us here on one of these Mormon
Thank you.
Tabernacle premieres. Let's get back to the album, though, because I think this CD really is going to be a quick favorite. It will be a favorite in short order, I think. Tell me what you were looking for, Ryan, as you helped in the choosing process.
Well, I love this project because it touches so many different age ranges and generations, and these were songs that I loved as a child, and now I have small kids myself, and so I'm looking at the things that they loved, and so I was looking for those things, I guess, that would sort of touch people and reach across the generations, as so many of these songs do.
I have to say that as we were thinking about this, I was always asking Ryan, because he has children who are still very much in the primary ages. So I was always saying, now, do they still sing this song? Or what songs do they sing that I'm not familiar with? And so he was a great resource in that way.
So did you approach this similarly as you do your other ones, or was there a different feel in your approach to this?
No, I think the approach was very much the same. We always, whatever we do, we try to do with as much integrity as possible. And as I said, we wanted to make sure that these were songs that both children and adults could sing.
One of the things that kept coming through my mind the first time I listened to this is that they felt almost lullaby-like, some of them. They were so calming. They were so peaceful. And I wondered if that was by design.
One of our challenges was that many of these songs are indeed what you just described. And so in a project like this, you try not to have everything sound alike. And so our biggest challenge was finding those songs which were not of the nature that you just described. And so finding pieces that were a little more upbeat, if you will, in tempo or in feel was a bigger challenge than I originally thought it would be.
Well, I think you did a masterful job because there's a lot of variety, even though there is that commonality of, I think, serenity or something as
Yes,
you listen.
and I think that that's something that is a great characteristic of most of the songs that we were looking at.
Now, before we get into them song by song, I just have to ask, do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite children's
Never-
song?
No.
You never do because they're all your babies, right?
You know,
Well, then-
I don't have a favorite.
Do you have a favorite on this album, Ryan?
I like them all.
I guess when you work and labor so hard over each of the pieces of these songs, you probably feel very
I
personally
always say
involved.
it's the one that we're working on at the moment.
Well, is there any song on here that has personal meaning for you that you hearken back to as a child that you sang that you loved?
I can certainly say that there are several songs on here that that I remember as a child and therefore have certainly a great affinity for, including the first song on the CD. I think the world is glorious, and this is one of those that I'm not sure if children sing this so much anymore, but it was one that we sang a lot when I was a child.
Well, I'm closer to your age probably than Ryan's age, so I'm with you. I sang it and remember, and it still comes into my mind on a beautiful morning as I'm driving out and see the world before me. Let's talk about this first song. Tell me about I Think the World is Glorious.
I remember being very impressed as a child because I was playing these pieces on the piano and always looking at the composer and the author of the text. And I always remember being very impressed that this particular song was by Alexander Schreiner, who was, of course, one of our great tabernacle organists. And when I was a child, he was certainly in the prime of his profession. And I always remember thinking about, wow, this song was written by the great Alexander Schreiner.
I remember them saying, and Alexander Schreiner at the organ as
Right.
a little kid when I'd watch conference on TV. So I remember the same thing. And when I saw that he had written this, well, what about the lyrics? Anna Johnson, what a prolific hymnist. I don't know if that's the correct word, but a writer of hymns.
Well, apparently she wrote many texts of many of
Oh, wait, I'm going to stop you. I've got
Okay.
her mixed up with Fanny Crosby on blah.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop you.
no,
Let's
but
go.
she was also quite prolific, I think.
Okay, let me just start that. What about the woman who wrote the music, Anna Johnson? She's a local woman from Logan, Utah, who was also a newspaper columnist.
Yes, and apparently published numerous collections of poetry. And I believe that Alexander Schreiner set several of her texts to music, this being one of the most familiar, I guess, to us.
I think it's a great way to start this CD because it felt like it had this big sweeping open in a grand orchestral
And
style.
that was our thought. This is one that I took great delight in arranging, and we needed a good opener and we wanted something that opened with a great vista, if you will.
Well, it certainly has that feel. In fact, let's let our viewers at home listen to a little bit of I Think the World is Glorious. That was I Think the World is Glorious, the first track on Teach Me to Walk in the Light and other children's songs. And that is a great way to start this album. Ryan, you arranged the next one, which had to be a tall order because we all know it. So what do you do when you're starting to rearrange or arrange Give Said the Little Stream?
Well, even though it's the second one on the CD, if I remember correctly, it was one of the last ones that was added to our list, and it was one of those things where we sort of said, we need another sort of big up-tempo number for the CD, and this one came to my mind, and it is a little daunting just because it is so well known and so well loved, but I love this song because it has almost sort of a folk hymn feeling to it, or a folk song feel, and I wanted to do something with it that sort of captured the fun side of the song and sort of kept it fresh. And so I tried to draw on that a little bit. And so you'll hear in this the use of two harps kind of in their high register, and it just gives it a little bit more of a folk flavor.
It felt very bright to me with those harps you mentioned, with flutes, with
You
chimes.
can really almost feel the stream flowing.
I felt that way.
It's
It was just
very delightful.
very, very bright. And so Fanny Crosby, now she's incredibly prolific.
Yeah, she wrote over 8,000 hymn arrangements, if you can believe that. I mean, she spent her life dedicated to the service of God and wrote many hymns that are still beloved today. And but this is among one of her best known and loved. So
Let's take a listen now to a bit of Give, Said the Little Stream, arranged by Ryan Murphy. That was a portion of Give, Said the Little Stream, arranged by Ryan Murphy, written by Fanny Crosby. I probably didn't need to tell them what they just heard. We know that one really well, don't we? But really lovely. The next track on the CD is a wonderful, wonderful story, a backstory, if you will, If the Savior Stood Beside Me. And I love that it was written by a mother about her daughter. Now, Sam Carden arranged this, but what can you tell us about choosing this one?
This is one of those songs that I think is quite beloved now by primary children everywhere, and it was one of those that I was not as familiar with, although I do remember hearing it at a certain time, but it just seemed like this is one that we had to include. So it's the original words and music are by Sally DeFord, but I am told that it was inspired by the example of her then 8-year-old daughter. And Sister DeFord even said her daughter was always so kind and loved others so much, it seemed as though she knew Jesus was always close beside her, taking care of her and loving her.
You know, I think the lyrics to this song have resonated with people. I think it was written not that long ago, but it's been in some of the primary programs in subsequent years. It has a very powerful message and kind of a admonition to really
Yes.
think about what you say and what you do. And I think that has been a powerful piece for many who have learned it as a child or
Yes.
listened to it as an adult.
well, this is arranged by Sam Carden, and Sam does quite a bit of arranging for the choir, and I love his arrangements because I find them to always be so colorful. He has a real way to bring out the colors of the orchestra, and I think he does that in this arrangement. He really makes it very poignant and brings out the integrity of the words here very, very well. So
I almost felt like it was at the beginning of this song, like a little music box that was opening and telling you this story.
You can say that about the next piece, too.
yeah, I agree with that.
Let's take a listen right now to a portion of If the Savior Stood Beside Me by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. This next track is, I think, one of the older ones on this CD that's been around for a long time, isn't it?
It's one that I certainly sang when I was a child.
I say it's probably the first song in this group of songs that I remember learning as a little girl.
My grandmother was the primary chorister for many, many years. And I always associate this song with my grandmother because I can just see her up leading the children and singing this particular song.
Tell me why you chose this one.
Well, I have that personal connection. Plus, I think that it's one that again, several generations still sing, and this particular setting, the music was actually by someone who was one of us, as you might say. The words actually, and I didn't know this until we had actually selected the song, but the song was written by someone from Britain, and she apparently wrote the words to this song during a stagecoach journey, and I believe it has been set to several different melodies since certainly the text was written, but this particular setting was by a Utah-based pianist and music teacher, Leah Lloyd, and it's arranged by Nathan Hoffines, who also writes quite a bit for the choir. And I asked Nathan to do this particular piece, and he called me back several days later and said, I think I'm actually related to Leah Lloyd, who wrote the music for this. So I thought that was an interesting connection.
Again, a small world, isn't it?
Small world.
Well, then let's take a listen to I Think When I Read That Sweet Story. That was I Think When I Read That Sweet Story. Well, the next track is the title track of this album, Teach Me to Walk in the Light. And this song is known to so many. Not only is it in the primary songbook, but this is one of the one that is in one of the songs that's in the hymn book.
This is one of the children's song that is included in our hymn book.
Mm-hmm. And so many of these songs could have been the title track. Why this one?
I think that just Teach Me to Walk in the Light can apply to everyone, and particularly to a child. Mm. And
it kind of takes in everything else.
Kind of the umbrella statement.
Yeah.
All of these songs can teach
and again,
all
it's
of us.
something is a text and a song that I think that's familiar to several generations.
Now, tell me about Clara McMaster, who wrote both the music and the words.
Well, interestingly enough, she was a member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir for 23 years, and back in the late 1950s was asked to write a song that both parents and children could sing together. And so that's how this song came about.
Seems entirely appropriate then that it should be included in this, since it was one of your own.
That's right.
Who was asked and wrote this beautiful song. Tell me about arranging it.
Well, I have, again, memories of singing this song as well as a child, and I always loved it. And so it was kind of a no-brainer when we were thinking about this, that this is one that I certainly wanted to include.
Brian, I know you're young, but you probably also sang this song. Do you have memories of Teach Me to Walk in the Light?
Absolutely. This was one of my favorites as well growing up, and I think it's just a message that resonates with everybody. So.
Let's listen to a part of Teach Me to Walk in the Light. That was Teach Me to Walk in the Light. Now, this next track is one of the newer songs. I have to confess, I didn't sing this in primary, but my children did, and I loved it when I heard them sing this song.
This is by a good friend of mine, Vanya Watkins, who has written quite a few songs that are in our current children's songbook. And Vanya is just a great person, and we knew that we wanted to include something of Vanya in this collection because of the wonderful significant contribution she has made to children's music. And this seemed like a great song to include. And it was one that I had heard it because my own children, I had heard my own children singing this song. But the challenge with this particular song is that there's only one verse. And so once again, Nathan Hoffines did a great job in arranging this so that it makes it feel like that it's more than just one verse.
Let's listen to I Will Follow God's Plan. You've been listening to I Will Follow God's Plan. Now, you have to know how much I love the next one because truly this is a lullaby
It is a lullaby.
between a
Yes, it
mother and a
is.
child. And I have loved this since the first time I heard this. And the choir sings it so beautifully.
It's just the women of the choir,
Mm-hmm.
which we thought was appropriate. And this is by another one of our very important composers, particularly of children's music, Janice Cap Perry. And if you look at this in the children's songbook, it's meant as you have one verse to be sung, then another verse, and then they're sung together. That may seem like it's an easy thing to do, but it's not an easy thing to do. And because each verse and each tune stands very well on its own, and then when you combine the two together, it makes for even a greater impact, if you will. And I really enjoyed arranging this particular song, and I have to say I did very little to the vocal lines of Janice Cap Perry because they were already intact, and it didn't seem like that. It seemed like to do more than what was there would have been putting, I always say, lipstick on the child. It just wouldn't have been right. And so my task was just to enhance what was already there.
When you take a song like this where, like you say, it's wonderful the way it is on its face without much changing, more adapting to your singing, your choral group. What is the hope? What do you think in your mind? Do you think, I hope that this music, or that this song, what can we do with this?
I hope that it does not detract from the original purpose. Sometimes, particularly when we're arranging things, you can go over the line. You can go over the line, and you make it into something that it's not intended to be. And I think that's actually a challenge of those of us who arrange music, is still maintaining the integrity of the original tune and text, and just enhancing what it was intended to be.
Well, when things are as popular or well known, such as these primary songs, then maintaining integrity becomes a really big job because everyone knows how they sounded in their primary room or in their home. And so tell me your feelings about maintaining the integrity as you arrange, Ryan.
I feel the same way. It's a question of not wanting to change it into something that it's not, but maintaining the essence of that so that we're just enhancing what's already there and make it maybe sink down a little bit even more into the listener without turning it into something that it's not. So.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of this beautiful lullaby, The Women of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir and Mother, Tell Me the Story. That was just beautiful. Part of Mother, Tell Me the Story. Well, next is an all-time favorite because we love our missionaries and we love this song. And I think we've all sung this for a lot of years. I sang this one in primary.
Called to Serve. I think we all did. and it's still very popular, and it's another one of those songs that's also included in our regular hymn book.
And we've actually heard this on another CD. I mean, this is a song that we like, and we are glad to have it included
Yes,
in multiple venues.
we actually have a CD
called.
Called to Serve.
Uh-huh.
And this is very similar to that. I added a few extra cymbal crashes, I guess you might say.
So it's its own arrangement for this CD.
It was re-recorded.
So if you're at home and think, oh, I already have that one, no, you don't.
No,
right?
this is a little different. That's
Okay.
correct.
Well,
Certainly a different choir as well.
Absolutely. So what are you thinking about when you're redoing again Called to Serve?
This one was a tricky one to arrange because the piece itself is already pretty martial. So I was trying to not capitalize too much on that because it's already has that character about it. I have to say it was a bit of a challenge.
I think it's brilliant how he starts out very soft, as if it's coming in the distance over the hill, and it's just a great arrangement how it builds and builds to the end. So
I like that. Let's let everybody listen to that, coming from afar and building. At least we'll give you a little bit of the build. Here's a part now of Called to Serve by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Called to serve him, heavenly King of glory, chosen heir to witness for his name. Far and wide we tell the Father's story, far and wide his love proclaim. Onward, ever onward.
That was part of Called to Serve. As we said, always a favorite for people of all ages, really. Men and women and children, we all love to sing and listen to Called to Serve. Now, this next one is also in the hymn book. This is one of the children's
Yes.
songs that is in the hymn book, in the 300 section, as we like to say,
That's
right?
right, in the back of the book.
Right. Tell us about Love One Another, why you chose this, and what you were hoping to do with this arrangement.
This is another one of the great children's songs, and certainly the message. And it's one of those, again, like so many, where the music and the text create a perfect marriage between the two. The challenge of this, as far as arranging it, was that it is very short as well. So I chose to give actually the violas of the orchestra a moment to shine. And sometimes the violas don't get
That's right.
It's usually the violins who get most of the attention. But decided to give the violas a chance to do something in this. And so they actually play one of the verses of the song instead of it being sung.
How nice.
And also, the entire piece is almost just in two parts. By that I mean the women are singing one part, the men are singing another part. And it's only towards the end of the song do they come into three parts. And then I'm trying to remember, but I think finally at the end they do come into four parts. But it's mainly just what we call a two-part song.
Just very pure.
Simple.
I love the fact that the choir is singing the Savior's words.
Yes.
And that, to me, is an incredibly powerful part of this song,
Well,
no matter whether you're hearing it in a word or by the
Yes.
Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
The message of the song, I mean, you can't get any more profound than the message of this particular song.
Your feelings about this one?
I'm glad I didn't have to arrange it because it's so well beloved, and Brother Wilberg did a tremendous job with this. So.
It is. It's beautiful. Let's listen to a portion of Love One Another. That was a portion of Love One Another. Our next track begins with the men, and I felt like when I listened to it that they were telling me a story, which was appropriate since it's Tell Me the Stories of Jesus. Ryan, you arranged this one. How did you approach it?
Well, this was one that I loved as a child, and I loved sort of the visual element of this, of seeing Jesus doing these things and being in these places. And I think especially the imagery of the sea was something that caught me when I did this one. And so I tried to sort of have the orchestration sound a little bit like the undulating waves of the ocean. It's sort of, and this also uses features quite prominently the English horn, which sort of gives us an exotic feel, like we're taken to another place. And this was one that I had loved for a long time. When I thought about arranging it, there were actually only 3 verses in the current primary book, and it sort of ends with the text, chided the billows and hushed the wind. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's enough for me to get quite the ending that I needed. And so I went back and looked in the Sing With Me, the older book. And
The orange one.
that's right, the orange one, and found this other verse of loudest hosannas and Jesus is King. And then I thought, I've got it. I can arrange this and have it feel right. So
Let's listen to a bit of Tell Me the Stories of Jesus. That was Tell Me the Stories of Jesus. And that's probably among the very first songs I remember, again, learning. And I remember the
I
primary
remember it very well
chorister
myself.
holding up pictures that
Right.
now we've seen a jillion times, right, in our life. But like you said, of the Savior by the sea. And now this next one on the CD, I think is probably a lesser known song. I wasn't as familiar with it.
I didn't know it either, but it was one that Ryan's children, he told me, really liked.
I learned it from my kids. And in fact, it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago that Brother Wilberg asked me to pick a song to arrange a primary song for General Conference. And so I asked my children, I said, what would you like to hear in General Conference?
It's kind of one of the perks of having your dad be the associate director, right?
I guess so. And this is the one they picked. And I learned to love this from them, and they would sing it around my home, and I grew to love it, and I love the message of it. And these are local women that composed this, and so it was a real treat to be able to do that. And they actually came when we did it for conference and listened to it when we rehearsed it. And
You got the okay, you got the
yeah,
2 thumbs up.
It made me very nervous, but they seemed
were
to
very
approve of
moved
it.
by it.
So
Oh, well, the name of it is I Know That My Savior Loves Me. And I thought it just painted the most lovely picture in a person's mind. And the lyrics are very tender, but I think they're, like you said, very colorful and they really have a story to tell.
they do, and it has such a simple testimony to it. You know, it's the way children express things. It's just simply, I know he lives. So,
And my heart I give to him. It just says, I'm laying it all out to the Savior. So let's listen a little bit to I Know That My Savior Loves Me.
Time ago in a beautiful place, children were gathered round Jesus. He blessed and taught as they felt of his love. Each saw that he
That was I Know That My Savior Loves Me. And I love the fact that, like you said, 2 local women wrote that song.
that's right. It was written by Dorena Bell and Tammy Jepson Creamer.
Just beautiful. I'm sure that a lot of people that haven't known that before will now come to really love that piece. Now, I have to confess that when I heard the next song, I didn't think I knew it because I hadn't looked down at what the next track was. Just that first part. You might not recognize it for just a few seconds, a few measures. But then, you know what it is, and it's a great primary song.
Yes, this was arranged by Richard Elliott, who's one of our Tabernacle organists, and he is a great arranger. And he really made a beautiful introduction to this piece that is sort of like the storm clouds, and then the sun sort of parts, and the clouds part, and the
Exactly.
sun comes through. And it's really great because it's very symbolic of what the message is, faith, you know, and sometimes faith is threatened by things and by clouds or various things, but you have to sort of hold to it.
Right. So what we're talking about the song is called Faith, but many people know it as faith is knowing the sun will rise. I mean, they know that first line, and then all of a sudden the rest of the melody comes flooding right into your mind. When you do a song like this, does Richard Elliott come and listen as the choir is doing this or singing this, or does he just hand you the arranged music and off you go?
Well, Rick was with us as we were rehearsing it, and so it was great to have him there because I certainly went to him and said, are we doing it right? Is the tempo okay? And so I wanted his input on it because it was his great arrangement, so it's great to have him there.
Mack?
Well, I wanted to say the music to this is by our great friend Michael Moody, another one who has written a lot of particularly children's music, and I've known and worked with Michael Moody for many years, and he's a great guy, and the words to this were written by Beatrice Jackson, a school teacher apparently, and a performing musician herself, and it's another one of those a great bringing together of text and tune.
Let's listen. Even though you've heard it, you may never have heard the Mormon Tabernacle Choir sing it. So arranged by our own Richard Elliott, here is a part of Faith. That was Faith by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Well, this next song I only learned about because it was sung a couple of years ago in the primary program all around the church.
That's right.
And I kept hearing the children sing it, and I heard some of the kids talking about it, that this was their new favorite song. And I kept thinking, I've got to get up to speed, on this new song. It's called Holding Hands Around the World. And the first time I heard it, I understood why. The message of worldwide unity in God's kingdom is just so profound in this song.
This is another song by Janice Cap Perry, and I was not familiar with it as well until it was brought to me, because it's not actually in the current book. It's what they call a supplemental song. And as soon as I saw it and played through it, I thought, yeah, this is something that we need to include. And again, we asked our friend Sam Carden to do an arrangement of this, and I think he captured the song very well.
You say you wanted to include it, and I think that is the most salient piece for me when I listened to it. It felt so inclusive. It felt like, holding hands despite where you're from geographically or where you're from in any level, that we're all one.
It was also one of those songs that was more up-tempo.
Definitely.
And again, Sam arranged it very well.
Do your kids know and love this song? Tell us about this song at the Murphy house.
They do. A lot of these newer ones I've learned from my kids as well, and this was one that they definitely loved singing and sing around the house still. So.
Well, let's listen to Holding Hands Around the World.
Children singing all around the world, happy voices ringing out the joyful word. We are children going with the gospel light, standing tall, walking strong, choosing right. There are children leading out in every land.
That was a portion of Holding Hands Around the World. And I think maybe one of my favorite parts of that song is where there's a prominent drum beat, and the words are, like an army with the gospel flag unfurled. And that just felt like this worldwide effort, and gathering together as children in the army of God or something like that. I don't know if that drum beat was there for that reason, but it certainly felt like it.
I think it was there for a reason.
This next song is probably as beloved as any on this CD, When He Comes Again. A lot of people know it as I Wonder When He Comes Again,
Right.
but the title is When He Comes Again. To me, this would be a very daunting task, and you were assigned to arrange When He Comes Again. Tell me how you approached this, Ryan.
Well, I was actually very moved by this piece when I was a child, and I remember being very moved by the second verse, especially, and the idea of coming into Jesus' arms at that day, and him saying, "You served me well, my little child." And that was very moving to me for some reason as a kid, and I never forgot that feeling that I had when I sang it. And so this was very important to me, this song, and I was very careful about how I did it. This one's actually very simply done. It only uses the organ, the tabernacle organ, and strings, just those two elements. And I think it gives it a simple feeling, which I think is right for this text, and it also creates sort of a shimmery effect, for lack of a better word, just having the strings and the organ sort of interchange with each other. So
I have an interesting story about the composer of this song. When I was a teenager, I was with my mother and my grandmother, and we were in Provo. We'd driven 2 hours. I grew up 2 hours south of Provo, so coming to Provo was a big deal. It was like
Up
coming
to the big city.
To the big city, and I remember it was a Saturday, and we were on our way. We were just right below, just south of BYU campus, and the car stopped. And so we stopped in front of a house there, not far from the BYU campus. And of course, those were in the days before cell phones and all those sorts of things. And so I remember my mother, when we stopped in front of this house, and my mother went in and knocked on the door to see if she could use their telephone to call someone to come and look at the car. And can you believe it? It was the home of Merla Greenwood Thane.
Really?
And so my mother had a conversation with her, and she said, well, my son is, he's into music and all that. We'll tell him to come in. So I went in and met her. And of course, I knew this song as well, but I couldn't believe we had stopped right in front of the home of the composer of, as you said, I Wonder When He Comes Again, because that's how I remember it. Mm. And so I received an autograph copy of this music, as well as some of the other music that she had written, and I still have that music. Wow. But I just think, again, a small world of all the houses that we could have stopped
just to use the telephone.
And it just happened to be the home of Merla Greenwood Thane.
Well, this, I think, like Ryan, I think that this touches children.
It does.
Because it talks about children in the Savior's arms. It's not when I'm grown up, it's as a child. So you really can
It's really very profound.
It really is. Let's listen to a portion of When He Comes Again. That was a portion of When He Comes Again. And I think it's interesting to note that the words were actually written for an Easter program in couplets, and then later, long after the program was over, they were put together for that song.
And it's lived on for many years.
Well, and think of the lives that this song has touched just
Exactly.
again and again. Well, the final track, and I bet if people had to guess, they could guess what song we have not yet sung on this Teach Me to Walk in the Light, and that is Naomi Randall's classic, I Am a Child of God.
It seemed the perfect way to end our CD collection.
Tell us about the experience of putting this on, arranging this, and singing it.
Ryan did a beautiful arrangement of this, and I'll let him talk about that.
Well, again, this is kind of one of those daunting ones because it's so well beloved, and as I thought about doing it, tried different things and different introductions, and then just decided that there wouldn't be any introduction on this, that it would just start with the choir a cappella, and then the orchestra would sneak in, and it's kind of for lack of a better analogy, it's a little bit like the still small voice, I think, when it begins. It just is something that pierces to the heart, which is what the message of this song does. And I was looking for a color that was a little different, again, because of how important and unique this is. And this orchestration actually uses 3 alto flutes in unison, which is unusual, but sort of creates this effect that gives this echo of this connection that we have to the divine, I think. And so I was very moved doing this. And then I guess maybe the other thing that might be a little interesting is just that it includes the 4th verse, which is listed in the primary book. It's not in the hymn book, but it's listed in the primary song book. And I thought it just made a nice ending to it, to talk about celestial glory and the fact that if we do, stay with God and walk beside Him, that those promises are there for us. So
I think one of the interesting pieces about this song is that after Naomi Randall wrote this, she submitted it, and they liked it just about as it was.
right, the only change that was made to this song was apparently President Kimball, who loved it, said, "I think it might make more sense or be more appropriate if it said, 'Teach me all that I must do,' instead of 'all that I must know,' which is what it said originally." So that change was made. So
Yes, since he was known for do it,
that's right.
not just know it, right? That's right. Well, let's listen to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing this beloved classic, I Am a Child of God. That was part of I Am a Child of God, the final track on this marvelous CD, Teach Me to Walk in the Light, and other children's favorites. So I think this is going to become a favorite because, as we said at the beginning of the hour, it really speaks to everyone, no matter what your age.
And most of it is very familiar.
And it's familiar, correct? And so what's your hope for this CD as opposed to other ones? I know they're all your babies, and I know you want everyone to feel what you felt, but this is a little different.
I think that the messages of each of these songs, even though they are simple and were originally meant for children, I think that they speak in a very profound way to all of us.
Ryan?
I'm happy to have something that includes my kids. Anything that brings them in and teaches them gospel truths. And again, this is not just for kids, but it's thrilling that it reaches across all those generations, I think.
And frankly, it would reach people of many faiths.
Indeed, it would.
If
Yes.
they want to draw closer to the Savior, Jesus Christ, this is a wonderful CD. As a mom who sometimes has had in my past busy children or children who are not having their best day, can we say, I will say that I think a CD like this could make a difference in your home. I think it invites the Spirit immediately.
That was part of our that was our hope as we selected the music to be included, as well as it is arranged.
I just don't think you could have discord when this kind of music is filling a home or a car or wherever you might be having a moment of discord with children. Thank you both so much for sharing with us some of your feelings about these beautiful, sacred, and really doctrinally deep, albeit simple songs.
Thank you, Ruth. Always a pleasure to be with you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.